So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax referral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax referral strategy is the best way for you to grow your wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best financial independents and passive income wealth advisors in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax referral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. Hey, my next guest is a financial expert. In fact, he is a CFP, AAP, CPWA, and is a Chief Executive Officer at BFG Financial, based out of Baltimore, Maryland. It's an independent firm assisting clients with wealth creation, preservation, and distribution. He has over 25 years of experience in financial planning, and he is here to share some knowledge. In fact, we're covering the 4 ways to pay less in taxes. He is also the host of Don't Retire, Graduate, a podcast dedicated to teaching listeners how to advance into retirement in a more efficient way that helps them financially as well. Hey, welcome to the show, Eric Brotman. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Brett. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, hey, thanks for being here. Would you give our listeners, tell us the listeners about your story and a little bit about your current focus?
Sure. The story is I started financial planning and wealth management back in the 90s, created a firm, an independent firm in 2003, and have grown it to now an organization with 21 folks, 8 financial advisors. We work as a team, as an ensemble. We have clients in 30 states and manage money for multi-generational families. And so we're not looking to do corporate work or employee benefits or executive benefits necessarily. What we want to do is work with high net worth families, upwardly mobile families, and families that are trying to grow wealth, preserve wealth, and ultimately make sure that most of it stays within their family after they go as well.
Excellent. And Eric, I'm curious, I think our listeners are too, with our guests who have been so successful and have so much experience. Before we dive into some of the strategies that you use to help folks with what you do, who was Eric growing up? In other words, I think we've all been given superpowers, right? A superpower, I call it a gift from God, and maybe it's 1 or 2 or 3. Some of us have more, but maybe what's that one gift that you were given, Eric? And how does that help how you help people today?
Even at a very young age, I think I was a connector. I was the one most likely to put together a game on the playground or to put together a group for the prom. And so just from all ages, I still consider myself a connector. Now it's more social media sometimes than it is physically, but at the end of the day, I love connecting problems and solutions and people who can help one another. So I think my superpower is just that.
Excellent. And did you play any sports growing up or do anything like that, where you're the captain of the team and helping lead the squad forward?
I played lots of sports and none of them well. So I was never the team captain, although I was frequently the one who worked the hardest in practice, because that was my Super Bowl, was practice. I was not much of an athlete. At the end of the day, I look back on that and think, man, I really tried.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I think that's it's so good to have the connector, right? Because otherwise, communities aren't built as much, and leadership isn't advanced unless we're all working together as a team, right? And so to have that gift is a great gift to have. And so thank you for sharing that. So Eric, what's the most rewarding part of what you do?
The most rewarding part of what I do is seeing the positive outcomes. And positive outcomes for us and for our clients aren't necessarily investment returns or something quantitative. They're life moments. They're being able to retire with dignity and to be able to be financially independent and to be able to see their kids or grandkids or great-grandkids get an education and not be buried in debt or in issues. It's buying the dream home or the vacation home, or the or being able to help the charity that makes the most that means the most to them. So I think it's all about outcomes. It's all about the whys. The hows are in a textbook, and the whats we can figure out, and the who's we can meet. But ultimately, the whys are what matters. That's why we do what we do.
I love that. I read the book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. Maybe you have too, but it truly is, I think, why we do what we do, and the inspirations behind it. And again, the all of the gifts that we've been given to make a difference in people's outcomes, whether it be with our, the services we provide, and or the financial legacy that folks can leave, right? Which leads into the opportunity to take advantage of legal tax loopholes, right? And finding ways to pay less in tax. Let's be honest, right? So with that being said, I'm curious, 4 ways to pay less in tax. Maybe do you have a couple you want to share with us, Eric?
Sure. There are 4 strategies available to almost every American family where you can park money where it will never be taxed again, legally, of course. And some of those are obvious. So when I say, hey, here's a place where you can invest money and it'll never be taxed again, what a lot of people immediately think of is the Roth IRA or the Roth 401k. And that's absolutely true. That is certainly one of the options. The other ones that maybe get a lot less exposure but should get a lot more, one of them is the health savings account. HSAs are amazing. They're a tax accident as far as I'm concerned, because they are the perfect vehicle where you can get a deduction for your deposits, you can grow tax-free, and you can make tax-free withdrawals so long as it's for healthcare. And quite frankly, I don't know anybody who's going necessarily, any couple who's going to be fortunate enough to never have medical expenses at some point in their lives. So a lot of people think HSAs have to be used immediately and you have to park money and then spend it on deductibles or coinsurance or all this other nonsense. The fact is you don't. You can save that for decades and let it grow and never pay capital gains tax, which is wonderful. Another strategy is a 529 plan. Yes, it's for education, so there are strings attached to it. However, it's a spot where you can put money away. You can get it out of your estate, which is very significant, particularly in certain parts of the country. You can get it out of your estate by naming your children or grandchildren or someone else, your next door neighbor, as a beneficiary. You're never gifting the money. You're not giving it to them. It's still yours, but it's outside of your taxable estate. It grows with no taxation. And as long as it's used for a qualified educational purpose, which in a limited way can be for private school, can also be for college or grad school, or you could even go back for your own PhD, Brett, if you were thinking about doing that. It's always an option. But at the end of the day, there will be someone in your family or in your community at some point that's going to want educational funds, and you could put money away for decades and never pay tax again. And the last is whole life insurance, which people absolutely don't understand. It's incredibly powerful to sort of be your own bank and have your own collateral and be in a position to utilize that. And so these 4 strategies between the whole life insurance, the HSA, the 529 plan, and the Roth IRA, I wrote an ebook that's available for free download. It can be found at lowtaxbook.com. And anyone who's interested in it can read that. I go through examples, I go through the details, and I also tell my personal story. Because quite frankly, there is a fair amount of money of mine that is in those 4 strategies, and it's working. My tax bill, it's only gruesome because of earned income. It's not gruesome because of my money at work.
That was just a wealth of information in about 3 minutes that was worth every bit of it. And so just a little quick overview. So you got the Roth, you got the HSA, you got the 529 plan, you got the whole life insurance. And the key is understanding which tool can help you achieve what you're trying to achieve and do it in a tax efficient or tax free way, right? Very powerful and really great. So that being said, walk us through capital gains tax deferrals that challenges this high net worth individual who in fact the baby boomers, $17 trillion is passing. What have you found that has been helpful for clients that you've had in the past who are selling a highly appreciated home, business, commercial real estate, or anything else like that?
Traditionally, the thought about selling a highly appreciated piece of real estate was that you had to do a 1031 exchange in order to move money from one like property to another. And that is the most booby-trapped situation I've ever seen with the qualified intermediaries and the amount of time you have to select the property and the way you're forced to use it. It's incredibly complicated, unnecessarily so, quite frankly. And I think a lot of people wind up avoiding it just because they're afraid of it. And again, rightly so. It's complicated. So on the real estate front, the solutions that are available to most people, the ones that are known to most folks, and I know you use a strategy that is somewhat unique and spectacular, because when you were a guest on Don't Retire, Graduate, you blew our minds, which was fantastic. But um, most of the time it involves charitable giving and wealth replacement trusts and charitable remainders, and there are some really creative ways to do a lot of good and also to do well. But not everybody's inclined to do that. And some people would rather maintain some control, and that's not always easy. And so coming up with a way to do this with whether it's farmland, whether it's traditional real estate, commercial or residential, whether it's business interests, especially closely held interests. I mean, there's only so many things you can do with stock options. At some point, you're going to pay the piper. And again, you have the charitable opportunity. But with farmland, real estate, and closely held businesses, there's some better strategies than the ones most of us know about.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? And thank you for sharing that, and thank you for the for the plug here with the Deferred Sales Trust. And it's really about understanding and providing clarity, right, for proven tax deferral strategies with trusted advisors. And that's key, right? Because it's not just the strategy, it's the professionals and it's the team that you build or build around you to help you execute. And I can't help but think of like the health analogy, right? If I go to a doctor every year and that doctor is helping provide the flu vaccine and checking my vitals and blood work to see, well, guess what? If something pops up like I tear an ACL or I need shoulder surgery, he's not going to be the person that does that, right? It's going to be the specialist who does all of those surgeries. He's done thousands of surgeries. So you want to make sure that you're working with someone who has had success with those surgeries. They haven't had patients die or haven't had patients go to jail per se, right? And they're excellent at what they do, but maybe the general practitioner doesn't know about that. So would you speak to just the importance of making sure that you're building a full team around you, and either A, they have access to those other specialists, and or B, they're not just settling for the one that they've always used, if that makes sense?
It makes total sense, Brett, and you're right in my wheelhouse. We call it the dream team. And the challenge here isn't finding qualified people to do various things. It's finding qualified people to do those various things and then to collaborate and work together on your behalf. So, we consider ourselves the generalists. We're the financial equivalent of a physical exam. We're the practitioner who's going to go and look at the whole big picture, and then we're going to find specialists all over. So it might be mortgages, it might be insurance related, it might be investment related, or banking, or any number of things. It might even be working with your HR department, your lawyer, your tax accountant. Ultimately, no one can be good at all of those things. And certainly you don't want to go to a generalist for a very specific niche surgery, to use that the medical term. And so I think it's important for us to know how to not necessarily diagnose or prescribe for those things, but how to understand when there's a need for a specialty, and then to bring it in. The wisest primary care physicians are the ones who identify your need for specialists, not the ones who solve all your problems, because quite frankly, no one can do that. And we see folks who come in, and I tell them we're going to do a physical exam, and then if you need a cardiologist and a podiatrist, that's who we're going to send you to. We're not going to send you to a dentist to look at your feet, generally. So,
Exactly. No,
it's the same thing financially. Yeah.
Yep. It's so well said. And the importance, I think the key to what you said is collaborate and work together, right? We got the egos, get out of the way, and let's all work as a team. Let's approach it with a humble, open mind, and let's also poke holes where it needs to be poked holes and ask the tough questions. And that's where we all succeed and we all grow, right? And that is, but the key is long-term track record, success, right? And then bring in and stay in your lane, if you will, right? That being said, I heard a quote yesterday. I wonder what you think about this quote. And it went along like this: like either there's Warren Buffett or someone else said it that Warren repeated it. But the wise do today what fools have to do tomorrow. Right. So the wise prepare today, they get educated, they invest today, they clarify their options, right? They're using the Roth, the HSA, the 529, the whole life insurance policies, maybe the Deferred Sales Trust, but they prepare today what fools have to do tomorrow. And I can't help but think of of once you're about to close the deal and it's going too fast and you're running out of time, or you're in that 1031 and you didn't know there was a backup plan that could save your failed 1031, which we just did for a client on a $7.6 million deal in Georgia. He's selling his highly appreciated apartment complex, and we saved him $1.1 million in tax. But he prepared a year before that, right? And he had educated himself and he had equipped himself and he asked the tough questions. So the wise do today what fools have to do tomorrow. So any thoughts on just preparation and making sure that you're prepared for all of these things? Because let's face it, finances is a big thing, and a lot of it can just be, disappear really quick.
You do have to be prepared, but you don't necessarily have to pack your own chute. So it's real important whether you're skydiving or whether you're doing some kind of financial transaction, having someone who has done it before in that tandem jump will make a huge difference. And so, I would love to do some of those things. I've belayed down cliffs, which is amazing, but I sure as heck didn't do it by myself. And I didn't just say, hey, I'll try this today on my own. When there are needs for specialists, you got to pull them in. So I'll give you another quote, and I have no idea who said it, but quite frankly, I love this, which is that no one person has a monopoly on great ideas. There's so much benefit to collaborating. In fact, one of the reasons, Brett, that we built the firm that we did is that every one of our clients has all 8 of our advisors looking at their plans before they're ever presented. We spend an enormous amount of time looking at it from every different angle. We want someone with 35 years experience and also someone with 3 years experience who's just come out of their CFP program looking at this. Because quite frankly, some of their education's fresher in their minds than it is in ours. Despite all the continuing education and so forth, there are state-of-the-art solutions for things that maybe younger practitioners know. I'm certain that's true in medicine. You got to know somebody who came out of med school in 1968 and somebody who came out in 2018 have different training. Not that one is necessarily better than the other. They're just different. And collaborating across generations, across perspectives, across backgrounds, using diversity to your benefit, diversity of experience, diversity of specialty. Quite frankly, I think that's one of the biggest keys to success is build the dream team and let everybody do what they do and work together. It's not rocket science.
So well said. And it's but it's missed, right? It's often missed, or it's forgotten, or it's perhaps we're distracted, right? And it maybe doesn't happen as well as it could have, right? So building that dream team, have a vision, build the team, and make sure you're working with people who are going to be collaborating and working together. Absolutely love that approach. With 8 advisors are seeing the plan before it's even presented, and of course, creating a place. And I think that starts with leadership, Eric. Creating an environment or a culture for your company and your team where it's safe to talk about new ideas and it's safe to respectfully challenge other ideas. And I read a book called Crucial Conversations, and it talked about we all have these crucial conversations, and the most important thing to do, or one of the most important things to do, is to make sure that everyone knows that it's safe to have an idea in the middle. And the idea is going to be here, and we're going to discuss that. And as we do that and we can create this environment, things can actually progress and move forward, and the emotions can go down, and we can be productive. And it's called, instead of acting out in violence, you're acting out in reason, right? And so that's super important. Okay, so shifting a little bit more here too, just talk about charitable giving, right? Why is it important to create an impact through charitable giving, Eric?
I think lives are made not by what you get, but by what you give. And I do believe there's some kind of karma in the universe that people who are philanthropic and generous and caring, that opportunities come to them in droves, and that's not why they're doing it. Altruism, I recognize, is in its foundation purely selfish. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily the driver around philanthropy. There are so many ways to change someone's life, and it's not difficult. So, for example, I'm a trustee of a local university here in Maryland, and I was approached at one point years ago to look at a naming opportunity on campus, to slap my name on something. And I thought about it and thought, hey, that's kind of neat. And then I remembered back to my own college experience where I was in Smith Hall and didn't know who Smith was. It didn't matter to me whatsoever. Smith's maybe been gone 100 years. It makes no difference to me. And I thought, well, that is nothing but feeding my ego. Let me find another way to do it. And that's not that that gift wouldn't have been important or valuable, but let's find another way. So instead, we created a scholarship, an annual scholarship called a GAP scholarship that allows juniors and seniors whose financial aid is no longer able to cover the difference between what they have to pay and what they can pay. And it keeps them in school. It helps make sure they graduate. And every year, 3 or 4 or 5 students will graduate, at least in part because of our philanthropy. We're changing lives. That is the coolest thing. And this, whether it's education or whether it's animals or whether it's seniors or whether it's kids or whether it's, we're involved with junior achievement for financial literacy, they're making a huge difference. These kids come out of school and they're making $100,000, $200,000 education decisions on student loans before they're allowed to have a Budweiser. It makes no sense. They have no training for that. They have no perspective on that. And so I think philanthropy can really change lives wherever you want to do it, whether it's in your community, whether it's in your country, whether it's around the world. And if it can be done in a way that also creates some tax benefit, some financial benefit, I think that's a nice thing. There's a reason why there's a charitable deduction. And of course, the tax bill in 2018 removed it. For about 90% of Americans no longer qualify for the charitable deduction. And you would think that that would impact the giving. And for the most part, it hasn't, which either means people have no idea what's in the tax code and they thought they were getting a deduction, they're not, which is cynical, or they do understand and that's not why they were doing it. It was a nice value add, but that wasn't the reason they were doing it. And so at least anecdotally, there's more to philanthropy than tax planning, just like there's more to tax planning than philanthropy. So I think they can be used hand in hand. And if you're willing to do some good, the rewards can be significant on so many different levels for your family.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think as a quote, and it's actually by my client, I think it's by Malcolm Gladwell, but he says the biggest failure is not to participate. And it's the idea that we've been given gifts, we've been given talents, we've been given wealth, and the biggest failure is when we don't use those to help other people, right? And the biggest rewards is always is never what we get. It's never like the outcome or it's the outcome. It's not what we get, right? It's not the money. It's how it makes a difference in people's lives and how that in turn changes our lives. So the biggest failure is not to participate. So it's just an encouragement to use what we've been given to help other people. Eric, are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm ready. Bring it.
All right. So favorite book that you've gifted or recommended in the past 6 to 12 months?
Atlas Shrugged.
If you could go back to your 25-year-old self and say, Eric, here's the one thing I'd want you to know or want you to do, what's that one golden nugget that you would make sure you knew?
Never, ever stop working out. It is really hard to start again.
Well said. Yeah, the health. Let's see. Your favorite leadership quote or theme that you live by?
The mark of an immature man is to die nobly for a cause. The mark of a mature man is to live humbly for one.
Love it. This last question is centered around your values. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so after all your success for don't retire, graduate.com, bfgfa.com, financial advising and helping countless individuals create and preserve more wealth, give back, all of that. How do you, Eric, stay centered on your values? And how do you stay encouraged to reach to new heights?
Staying centered on my values has always been reasonably easy for me. I think I have a decent compass for that. I don't cut corners. I don't. I never look to take a shortcut. So I'm willing to pay the dues and to do the work. And I think by mentoring and coaching and teaching young advisors, that's kept me very, very sharp because it forces me to be on the cusp of not only the education piece, but also being an example people can look up to. I have to think about if something happened to me today and my own family was working with one of the other advisors in my firm, would I know they were okay? And the answer is a resounding yes. I am totally unnecessary to this process here, at least from that standpoint. And so staying true to my values is really making sure that everyone around me, without sacrificing their own values, because we all have our own feelings, but making sure everyone around me is prepared to do the right thing in every case, even when it's unpopular, even when it's unpleasant, even when it's expensive, whatever it is. If we do that, we'll never regret it, and we'll never have to apologize. Outcomes won't always be what we want, but inputs can be.
Love that. And with that, where can people find you? Would you remind them one more time how they can connect with you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, for folks who want to read more about the 4 strategies that we talked about for paying less taxes, the website is lowtaxbook.com. Our company website is bfgfa.com. And the podcast is at don'tretiregraduate.com. And we'd love to have additional listeners. And if they're fans of yours, they can hear your episode on iPodcast.
Love that. Well, Eric, I want to thank you for being on the show, sharing your wisdom, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax referrals simple and passive income plans achievable, and also be able to give back to charity. So in ways that are going to make an impact for those most in need. So I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts and talents you've been given to make a difference in this world. And I would again thank our listeners for listening to another episode. If we could be of any service to you, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to clarify your capital gains tax referral options. So again, you can create and preserve more wealth and perhaps give more to those most in need. Thanks so much. And please share, subscribe, rate, review. Until next time, goodbye.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.